Today we're going to discuss something that I'm a mental health specialist in the school myself, and I've been interacting in a number, and I work also in a medical center, and I have my own life coaching center. So we've interacted in a number of cases with children's social anxiety, especially during COVID-19. It's not that it was not present before COVID-19, but maybe it got highlighted during COVID-19. And I guess the fact that the parents were present more with their kids, they started noticing a number of things. The online life that the kids has transformed for them to start simply being in front of that screen and starting to go like, oh, everyone has their eyes on me. I cannot disappear in between people. I guess social anxiety got highlighted due to those reasons. So let's start with defining children with social anxiety disorder. They struggle with excessive social consciousness that goes beyond common shyness. A lot of parents mix up with saying, oh, my kid is shy. My kid does not like to interact with other people. But kids with social anxiety worry so much to an extent they become from being judged negatively by others, that they stop doing the things that they need. They stop functioning in real life. And then we see the two aspects of the difference between social phobia, which is basically the focus is on performance. The kid at that point worries about speaking in public or trying out for a team or stepping on a theater or like going into a drama or play. But he already functions regularly, except only in excessive social interaction, like he has to be under the spotlight. That is considered as social phobia, and we can like the kid function regularly in his day. That does not prevent him from functioning in his everyday errands, school days, playing, and all of that. Then we go to the next step with the other type, which is a bit more considered as severe, and this would be diagnosed by a psychiatrist as a social anxiety disorder, and that is it involves social situations in general. It prevents them from functioning socially. We've got cases that for years, the child has started going to school because of social anxiety, and it's because of severity. The child simply has a number of symptoms that goes with it. For example, the common physical symptom of a social anxiety is blushing. We can consider it as a very simple kind of symptom. And then we move on to the higher stage, which is muscle tension, higher upset stomach, quickening of heartbeat, and more higher lightheadedness, shortness of breath, and of course dizziness and nausea. And a number of people could interact this blackout episode where I don't know what happened, I simply felt dizzy and I blacked out. But what are the risk factors of social anxiety? Social anxiety is more common in children who have a first-degree relative with a disorder, like a parent it's a first-degree relative. And there seems to be a genetic component to this as well as environmental component, such as social anxious modeling by parents. Environment has a very important aspect on this child. Even if he is already predisposing such disorder, the environment makes it even more severe or helps him to get over it. And that's why I guess when we coach children with social anxiety, we try our best for them to adapt, to be able to accept those fears but move on with it. And this is where ACT comes in, or we try to apply component of acceptance commitment therapy for kids to be able to go like, oh, so I don't have to fight with my brain every day or convince myself. It's more about accepting those thoughts. So the first step is we need to understand the unhelpful patterns. It starts with a worry, panic. The first reaction for a child with social anxiety is to simply avoid that situation. If I'm going to go out with my friends, I'm going to avoid it. If I have to go to school, I'm going to avoid it. And this is what we call the short-term relief. On the spot, the child feels relief. He feels he got away of it, and we call it temporary relief. Then we move on to the continuous worry. Why? Because the feelings come back in a different way. I'm not good enough, I'll never overcome it, and hence the loss of confidence in coping. And then we go into this vicious circle again, which turns us back to worry and panic. So let's take an example here. Worrisome thoughts, anxiety, fear, sadness, shakiness, exhaustion, feeling unworthy. That's the aspect of social anxiety. Then the short term will be, okay, so I need to get away right now, to run away, to avoid somehow. I either watch Netflix, I overanalyze, I overthink, because a lot of people go under the impression, and especially we see this in kids in 14 years old and 15 years old, I'll think a lot about the problem to get solved. And hence, of course, as we understand that when we think more of a problem, we're digging deeper in it and we're getting stuck more in it. Or of course, you say yes when you should have said no, or you say no when you should have said yes. Drinking and drugs is a cause of social anxiety, because they want the sudden and right now relief. Of course, overeating makes them feel really good on the spot. After this avoidance behavior, okay, so I took all of this to avoid this sudden shakiness, nausea, I wake up to realize the outcome, which will be escape for a little, yes, feel relief for a little, temporary escape, yes, but then the original feelings returns and thoughts times 2. And hence they get stuck. And then this reinforces the avoidance, because if I was going to go to school and I felt shy and I avoided it, this feeling comes back double. And then I end up avoiding it again. I have a case example. For example, let's say if this child is going out with their friends and the first feeling goes like, okay, what if they don't like me? The short-term avoidance will be saying no to the outing altogether, making an excuse, or overanalyzing planning, meaning, okay, so if they say this, I'll do that. I will note down some conversations. I will try. So it ends up becomes so hectic that he tries to avoid it altogether. The outcome of it later on, because at that short term, as we say, he will be relieved. The child will feel that he won a situation on that point, but the outcome of it will be, I'm going to be alone forever, mad at self, sad, disappointment in self. We need to recognize the pattern as parents or as children ourselves, or we need to understand that there's a pattern to this behavior. If a case comes to me and this child haven't been to school, that's a real case that I'm dealing with at the moment, did not go to school for 3 years. It started somewhere. It started with missing a day. And then that avoidance behavior, this short-term relief happened. And then the outcome happened. It started in a pattern. We need to recognize it to be able to come in between it. Even the child needs to recognize it to feel, you know what? I know I should not, but I should overcome it. So the first myth that we usually as parents or even as kids themselves, they go through, okay, I'm going to delete the thought. You can't get rid of painful or distressing thoughts. It's not as easy as we think. Actually, when we try to delete those thoughts, it actually fights back, so it becomes even stronger. We have to understand the network of experiences can only add connections, and you can become less reactive over time. So by accepting those thoughts, by simply acknowledging, instead of being lost in that thought, we understand that we have to notice it. We have to acknowledge it. And there's a number of cases that's like, they just want the validation of it. The thought wants to be validated. And then we move on with our lives with that fear, because we need to get over it. And in a process where I will show you a number of aspects we use with the children. Of course, the myth is I can start living my life only when my thoughts go away. And that will simply ruin our lives and ruin their lives. Active living is what helps thought fade to the background noise. I always tell them, I even tell the kids that I work with, fake it till you make it. It's simple as that. You need to start feeling like you need to get up in that morning and do all the mindfulness. And there's also an aspect of mindfulness and techniques that we work with children through. Thoughts dedicate feelings, but we do not have to act accordingly. The idea that our children are so young and so unaware of their capability, they feel like, okay, so I have those thoughts and the feelings come with it, I have to act accordingly. It's just breaking the cycle sometimes helps them. Oh, so I don't have to act as if I'm feeling what I'm feeling. I don't have to act accordingly. I can overcome it. And this starts a new ways to break that pattern. So we simply acknowledge the thoughts, believe they have no control over our actions. We need to pause. We need to take that deep breath and go like, okay, let's continue. And that's where mindfulness meditation comes in as a huge helpful factor with our kids. Mindfulness, even exercising helps a lot, moves helps a lot, and encouraging small achievements. So if the child has social anxiety, for example, from school, we could bargain with him half a day. We could now, due to COVID-19, I've bargained with a number of social anxious students to attend, but without turning their camera. We need to meet them halfway. Those kids cannot snap out of it like we think. It is harder than we think. It is, they are suffering within, and they're going through a lot. And of course, they need to recognize the pattern to break that pattern. So we need to sit with them and start analyzing each pattern separately. The mindfulness triangle is simply every person starts at focus. Everyone tries to move from focus, trying not to think something. So they want to focus, but of course thoughts comes in, and what we call it that comes in a distraction. With mindfulness, we simply notice that distraction. What came into your mind? It's basically staying in the present. So as a social anxious person, he will not think about the results from the outcome right now. He will think like, oh my God, if I'm going through this, for example, if I got COVID-19, we've got a number of anxious students at that part and children at that part that was coming to me for sessions because what they were going through was, okay, so if I get COVID-19, I could give it to my family, and I will lose all my family. It does not stop at just getting COVID-19. It grows so much because in the past slides, I've informed you that it simply rises up in the brain because of over-analyzing. So when the person simply starts noticing, recognizing the patterns that come, acknowledging what's within their control. So for example, if you go from COVID-19 and go like, okay, so I'll just stay healthy, put on my mask, do all the precautions, and that's it. It's basically telling you, this is what you have in controlling. This is what you have and you can control within. And of course, practicing pausing and then responding differently. So let me pause right now. I got distracted from my focus point, which is getting dressed and going to school. I got distracted, what if, meaning what if the teacher called my name, I didn't know how to answer. What if someone made fun of me? Okay, so let's pause right now. We notice our pattern, and then we think of what we can control, how the answers that I am ready, the answers that when things happen will happen, the fact that I'm right now in the present. I'm not living in an hour in the future. I'm not living an hour even in the past. I'm simply in the moment right now. The mindfulness-based strategies is basically we reflect and we put on the spotlight the attention. What do you notice from your behavior? And then reflect and reframe. And what are the patterns? What are the assumptions, as we have stated? And the awareness. What if you stayed with the experience without trying to change it? Can you see the bigger picture with more clarity? It's simply following those certain steps for them to be able to manage with their social anxiety. A few quick coaching tools we work with children is the worry chain. This is one of those important. I need to understand, what does this child worry about continuously, and how does it ride in his head? Of course, the Johari window, it's for self-awareness that I also like to use, because if the child is aware of his strength, if he's aware of his weakness, we can work on it. And the life balance wheel, where he stands, where he should work on more, because it's basically, it deals more with the aspect of confidence level. I need to help that child to overcome. And of course, the away moves and the towards move. Away moves because it hurt, but what will happen if you run away and you avoid it? But what about if I move towards what I fear and do it? And we take this step by step with the children. Thank you so much. I kept it as short as possible and simple, and that's how we work with kids on a regular basis. Thank you. Any